The clock on Maya's laptop showed to 17 a.m., but she couldn't sleep. Her tiny apartment in California felt smaller than usual, with astronomy textbooks stacked everywhere and empty coffee cups scattered across her desk. She had been scrolling through the same space research forum for hours, reading discussions about distant planets that might support life. As a graduate student studying space science, she spent most nights like this, alone with her computer, dreaming about worlds she'd never see. Halfway around the world in Sweden, Alex was just starting his morning routine. He poured his usual cup of coffee and opened his laptop before heading to work at the Satellite Research Center. The same forum that kept Maya awake was his daily morning read. He worked on navigation systems for space missions, but his real passion was learning about the planets they were discovering beyond our solar system. Maya had been following the forum for months, mostly just reading what others posted. But tonight, something made her want to write. Someone had shared a theory about how water might exist on a planet called Kepler 45b, and she had some thoughts about it. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. She wasn't used to speaking up in online spaces, especially ones filled with professionals who seemed to know so much more than she did. But at 2:30 a.m., with nothing but silence around her, Maya typed her first post. She explained her idea about how the planet's distance from its star might create different weather patterns than what others were suggesting. She wrote carefully, checking her words 3 times before hitting send. Then she closed her laptop and tried to sleep, wondering if anyone would even read what she had written. Alex saw her post first thing in the morning. He read it twice, impressed by how clearly she explained complex ideas. Most people on the forum used technical language that was hard to follow, but Maya wrote in a way that made sense to everyone. He found himself nodding as he read, thinking about how her perspective could actually help with some of the satellite positioning work he was doing. He decided to respond. Alex wasn't usually one to comment much. He preferred to observe and learn quietly, but something about Maya's post made him want to continue the conversation. He wrote back, agreeing with her theory and adding some thoughts about how satellite data might support her ideas. He kept his response friendly but professional, the way he learned to communicate in his work environment. When Maya woke up the next afternoon, she found Alex's response waiting for her. Her heart jumped a little, not just because someone had replied, but because they had actually understood what she was trying to say. She read his comments several times, noticing how he built on her ideas instead of just agreeing or disagreeing. It felt like a real conversation, something she hadn't experienced much in her academic world. She wrote back that evening, this time feeling more confident. They discussed the technical details of planet formation, shared articles they'd found interesting, and slowly began to reveal tiny pieces of their personal lives. Maya mentioned being a graduate student. Alex shared that he worked with satellites. Neither said much about themselves at first, but their conversations about space felt surprisingly personal. Days turned into weeks of exchanging messages on the forum. Other users began to notice their ongoing discussions, sometimes jumping in with their own thoughts. But Maya and Alex always seemed to be responding primarily to each other, building ideas together like they were working on the same research project. Maya started looking forward to checking the forum each night. She would finish her homework, grab a snack, and settle in to see what Alex had written. His messages came at the perfect time when she was winding down from her day. He was just starting his. Their opposite schedules created a natural rhythm of conversation that felt almost like passing notes in class. Alex found himself thinking about Maya's perspectives during his workday. When his colleagues discussed satellite positioning, he would remember something she had said about planetary atmospheres. When he read new research papers, he would wonder what she would think about the findings. Her curiosity about space was infectious, reminding him why he had chosen his career in the first place. One evening, Maya wrote something that changed everything. She mentioned feeling lonely in her research, how she spent most of her time alone with books and computers. While her classmates seemed to have normal social lives, she wasn't complaining exactly, just sharing how strange it felt to be passionate about something that required so much solitude. Alex understood completely. He wrote back about the long hours he spent at work, how few people in his personal life really understood what he did, or why he found it interesting. He described the odd feeling of working on projects that would help explore space, while sitting in the same office building every day. They both loved their work, but it could be isolating. This exchange opened something new between them. They began sharing more personal thoughts alongside their scientific discussions. Maya told Alex about her struggles with graduate school, the pressure to publish research, and her uncertainty about her future career. Alex shared his thoughts about work-life balance and his dream of contributing to a major space discovery someday. Their conversations became the best part of both their days. Maya would save interesting articles to share with Alex, and he would think about questions to ask her during his commute. They developed inside jokes about complicated space theories and began to recognize each other's sense of humor. Neither of them planned for their friendship to become so important. It happened gradually, like watching a star slowly brighten in the night sky. Maya started mentioning Alex to her roommate, always beginning with "this person I know from online." Alex found himself staying up later to catch Maya's messages. Even though he had to wake up early for work, they were both studying the same universe, fascinated by the same distant worlds, but they were discovering something much closer to home. In a forum dedicated to planets light years away, they had found each other. Neither knew it yet, but their late-night conversations about space were the beginning of a journey that would change both their lives forever. The vast universe that had always made Maya feel small was starting to feel like it had brought her exactly where she needed to be, and Alex, who had spent years helping satellites find their way through space, was about to discover that sometimes the most important navigation happens between two hearts finding each other across the darkness. When the world shut down in March 2020, Maya thought her life wouldn't change much. She was already used to spending most of her time alone, studying in her apartment and attending classes online. But she didn't expect how different loneliness would feel when everyone else was experiencing it. 2. Her campus emptied out. Her part-time job at the university library disappeared, and suddenly her conversations with Alex became her main connection to the outside world. Alex was dealing with his own challenges in Sweden. His office switched to remote work, which meant spending even more time at his computer. The Satellite Research Center felt like a ghost town when he had to go in for essential tasks. His usual weekend activities, visiting museums, meeting friends at cafes, all disappeared overnight. But every morning, he found himself looking forward to Maya's messages more than his work emails. Their conversations started happening more frequently. What used to be a few exchanges on the forum became daily messages, then moved to private messaging when they realized they were dominating every discussion thread. Maya would wake up to find thoughtful responses from Alex waiting for her, and Alex would end his workday by reading Maya's latest thoughts about everything from black holes to her struggles with online classes. One day, Maya suggested they try video calling. She was nervous about it. They had been talking for months, but only through text. What if they didn't click the same way in person? What if the magic of their conversations didn't translate to actually seeing each other? Alex felt the same anxiety, but he was curious too. He wanted to see the person behind all those late-night discussions about distant galaxies. Their first video call was awkward in the best way. Maya kept adjusting her camera angle, and Alex apologized for his messy apartment background. But within minutes, they were laughing about how strange it was to finally see each other. Maya noticed that Alex had kind eyes and that he gestured with his hands. When he got excited about a topic, Alex saw that Maya had a bright smile and that she had covered her walls with pictures of nebulae and star clusters. The video calls became a regular thing. They would schedule them around their different time zones. Maya's evening was Alex's morning, which actually worked perfectly for both of them. Maya would have dinner while Alex had his coffee, and they would talk about their days like old friends catching up. Sometimes they would watch the same documentary together, pausing to discuss what they were learning. Other times they would just sit in comfortable silence. both working on their own projects while keeping each other company. Maya started sharing more about her real life. She told Alex about her worries regarding her research project, how her advisor was difficult to work with, and how she sometimes questioned whether she was smart enough for graduate school. Alex listened carefully and always seemed to know exactly what to say. He would remind her of all the insightful things she had shared about space research, pointing out how her unique perspective was exactly what the field needed. Alex opened up to. He talked about feeling stuck in his career, wondering if he was making a real difference in space exploration or just maintaining systems that other people had designed. He shared his childhood dream of becoming an astronaut and how he had slowly accepted that he would contribute to space exploration from the ground instead. Maya helped him see that his work was crucial, that without people like him, none of the space missions would be possible. They created little traditions together. Every Sunday, they would virtually visit a different observatory's website, taking online tours and learning about the telescopes housed there. Maya would pick one week, Alex would choose the next. They started sharing music playlists, introducing each other to artists from their respective countries. Alex learned to appreciate Maya's love of indie rock, while Maya discovered Swedish folk music through Alex's recommendations. The pandemic made their connection feel even more special. While everyone else was complaining about video calls and screen fatigue, Maya and Alex were finding joy in their digital relationship. They would leave their video calls open while doing mundane tasks, creating a sense of shared space even though they were thousands of miles apart. Maya would cook dinner while Alex worked on his computer, and they would chat about random topics throughout. One evening, Maya had a particularly bad day. Her research wasn't going well. She had argued with her advisor, and she felt overwhelmed by the uncertainty of everything happening in the world. She almost canceled her call with Alex, but decided to tell him she wasn't feeling great. Instead of trying to cheer her up with jokes, Alex just listened. He let her vent about her frustrations and validated her feelings without trying to fix everything. After she finished talking, Alex shared something he hadn't told anyone else. He admitted that talking to her had become the best part of his day, that their conversations made him feel less alone in a way he hadn't experienced before. Maya felt the same way but had been afraid to say it. There was something happening between them that went beyond friendship, but neither wanted to rush into labeling it. They began staying up later to talk, sacrificing sleep to spend more time together. Alex would set his alarm earlier so he could catch Maya before she went to bed. Maya would plan her day around their call time, making sure she was free when Alex had his lunch break. Their friends and family started noticing that they seemed happier, more energetic, despite everything happening in the world. As months passed, their relationship deepened without either of them fully acknowledging what was happening. They knew each other's schedules, favorite foods, and biggest fears. Alex knew that Maya talked to her plants when she was stressed. Maya knew that Alex hummed unconsciously when he was concentrating on difficult problems. These small details created an intimacy that surprised them both. By the end of 2020, they had talked almost every day for 8 months. Their conversations had evolved from discussing space science to sharing their deepest thoughts about life, career, and what they wanted for their futures. Neither said the word love out loud, but it was present in every conversation, every shared laugh. In every moment of comfortable silence, the world felt uncertain and scary. But Maya and Alex had found something solid in each other. Distance that once seemed impossible to bridge was starting to feel like just another challenge they could overcome together. They were beginning to dream about a future where their conversations wouldn't have to end with good night and good morning across different time zones. By early 2021, Maya and Alex could no longer pretend they were just friends. Their daily video calls had become the anchor of both their lives, and they found themselves talking about when we meet instead of if we meet. But turning those dreams into reality proved harder than either of them had imagined. The paperwork alone was overwhelming: visa applications, financial requirements, and endless forms that seemed designed to discourage people from crossing borders for love. Maya, spent her evenings researching Swedish immigration laws instead of studying for her graduate courses. She printed out pages and pages of requirements, highlighting sections about relationship visas and temporary residence permits. The language was confusing, full of legal terms that made her head spin. She needed to prove that her relationship with Alex was genuine. But how do you document love? How do you explain to a government official that someone you've never hugged means everything to you? Alex was dealing with similar challenges on his end. He looked into visiting Maya in California, but tourist visa requirements had become stricter. He needed proof of employment, bank statements, and a detailed travel itinerary. Even then, there was no guarantee he would be approved. The American embassy in Stockholm had limited appointments available, and the waiting list stretched for months. Every day that passed felt like another day stolen from their chance to be together. The most frustrating part was the financial requirements. Maya was a graduate student living on a tiny stipend, sharing a cramped apartment with two roommates. The Swedish government wanted proof that she could support herself and Alex if he moved to America. Alex had a steady job, but the income requirements for sponsoring someone seemed impossibly high. They both started working extra hours. Maya took on tutoring jobs, and Alex picked up freelance projects just to meet the minimum financial thresholds. Their video calls became planning sessions filled with spreadsheets and legal documents. What used to be relaxed conversations about space and life turned into stressed discussions about paperwork deadlines and embassy appointments. Maya would show Alex her latest research about visa requirements, and Alex would share updates about his job search in American companies. The romance wasn't gone, but it was buried under layers of bureaucracy and practical concerns. Maya's friends started questioning her choices. Her roommate couldn't understand why she was putting so much effort into a relationship with someone she had never met in person. What if you don't have chemistry when you finally meet? She would ask, what if he's not who you think he is? These doubts crept into Maya's mind during her weakest moments, usually late at night when she was filling out another form or researching another requirement. Alex faced similar skepticism from his family. His parents worried that he was making life-changing decisions based on an online relationship. His coworkers joked about internet girlfriends and warned him about people who weren't who they claimed to be online. Alex knew these concerns came from a place of caring, but they still hurt. He was certain about his feelings for Maya, but explaining that certainty to others felt impossible. The pandemic made everything worse. Embassy closures, flight cancellations, and constantly changing travel restrictions added new layers of complexity to their plans. Just when they thought they had figured out the requirements, new rules would appear. Countries would close their borders or require lengthy quarantine periods. Maya and Alex watched other couples reunite while they remained stuck in an endless cycle of applications and rejections. Maya's first visa application was denied. The rejection letter was cold and impersonal, stating that she hadn't provided sufficient evidence of her relationship with Alex. She cried for hours after opening the envelope, feeling like a government official had dismissed the most important thing in her life with a simple stamp. Alex tried to comfort her during their video call that night, but she could see the disappointment in his eyes too. They regrouped and tried again. This time, they were more strategic. They printed out hundreds of pages of their conversations, dating back to their first exchange on the Space Forum. They gathered testimonials from mutual friends who had witnessed their relationship develop online. Alex wrote detailed letters explaining their plans and his commitment to their future together. Maya documented every video call, every shared movie night, every moment that proved their connection was real. The second application took even longer to process. Maya checked her email obsessively, jumping every time her phone buzzed with a notification. Alex started having trouble sleeping, staying up late to research backup plans and alternative visa options. They both knew that another rejection might mean waiting another year or more before they could try again. During this waiting period, they discovered how much stress was affecting their relationship. Small disagreements that they used to laugh off became bigger arguments. Maya snapped at Alex when he suggested she consider moving to Sweden instead of him coming to America. Alex got frustrated when Maya seemed to doubt his commitment to their plans. They were both scared and exhausted, and sometimes that fear came out as anger toward each other. But they also learned how to support each other through disappointment. When Alex's job application at a California company was rejected, Maya spent hours helping him research other opportunities. When Maya had a panic attack about her uncertain future, Alex talked her through breathing exercises and reminded her of all the obstacles they had already overcome together. Their relationship was being tested in ways they never expected, but they were discovering that their connection was stronger than they had realized. The bureaucratic process taught them patience and persistence. They learned that love wasn't just about romantic feelings. It was about showing up for each other day after day, even when the odds seemed impossible. They developed a new appreciation for couples who had successfully navigated international relationships, and they began to understand why some people gave up along the way. As 2021 dragged on, Maya and Alex remained stuck in immigration limbo, but they refused to give up on their dream of being together. They had crossed the vast distances of space in their conversations, and they were determined to cross the much smaller distance between their two countries. Every rejected application brought them closer to understanding the system, and every setback made them more committed to their eventual success. They were learning that sometimes the most important journeys aren't measured in light years, but in the small, daily choices to keep believing in love despite every obstacle trying to keep you apart. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning in September 2022. Maya was barely awake when Alex's excited voice filled her bedroom through the speaker. "I got it," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "The visa came through. I can come to California." Maya sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake, her heart racing. After 18 months of applications, rejections, and endless waiting, it was finally happening. They had 3 weeks to plan everything. Alex booked his flight for October 15th, arriving at San Francisco International Airport at 6:47 p.m. Maya counted down the days like a child waiting for Christmas, but with each passing day, her excitement mixed with growing nervousness. What if they didn't click in person the way they did online? What if the magic of their video calls disappeared when they were in the same room? Maya cleaned her apartment obsessively, changing the arrangement of furniture 3 times and buying new sheets for her bed. She practiced conversations in the mirror, trying to figure out how to act naturally around someone who felt like her soulmate, but was also technically a stranger. Her roommate teased her about being more nervous than she had been for her graduate thesis defense. Alex was dealing with his own anxiety in Sweden. He packed and repacked his suitcase, trying to fit 2 years of hopes and dreams into a single carry-on bag. He brought small gifts that represented their shared interests: a book about Swedish astronomy, a playlist he had made of songs that reminded him of their conversations, and a small telescope keychain he had bought months earlier. Everything felt significant, like each item needed to perfectly represent how much this moment meant to him. The day finally arrived. Maya left for the airport 3 hours early, too nervous to sit at home any longer. She found a spot near the international arrivals gate and watched every person who walked through the doors. Her hands were sweating despite the air conditioning, and she kept checking her phone for updates on Alex's flight status. When the arrival board finally changed to landed, her stomach flipped. Alex had never been so nervous in his life, walking through the immigration line. He worried about every question the officer might ask. What if they didn't believe his relationship with Maya was real? What if something went wrong at the last minute? But the officer simply stamped his passport and wished him a good visit. Alex walked toward the arrivals area, scanning the crowd for the face he had seen on video calls for over 2 years. They saw each other at the same time. Maya spotted Alex's familiar blonde hair before he noticed her waving. For a moment, they both froze, taking in the reality of being in the same physical space. Then Alex smiled, the same warm smile Maya had fallen in love with through a computer screen, and she felt her nervousness melt away. Their first hug lasted longer than either of them had planned. Alex was taller than Maya had expected, and she had to stand on her tiptoes to reach his shoulders. He smelled like airplane coffee and Swedish deodorant, scents that were completely new but somehow felt like home. Maya felt smaller in his arms than she had imagined, and her hair was softer than it looked on video calls. They held each other in the middle of the busy airport, oblivious to the travelers rushing around them. "You're real," Maya whispered, and Alex laughed, the sound vibrating through his chest where her ear was pressed against it. "So are you?" he replied, pulling back to look at her face. "You're exactly like I imagined, but also completely different." The drive back to Maya's apartment was filled with nervous chatter. They talked about the flight, the weather, the traffic, anything to fill the strange silence that came from finally being together. After so many months of constant conversation, Maya kept glancing at Alex in the passenger seat, marveling at how he gestured with his hands when he talked, something she had never been able to see clearly on video calls. The first few days were a mixture of wonderful and awkward. Simple activities like grocery shopping or cooking dinner felt monumental, because they were doing them together. Maya watched Alex figure out American grocery stores, smiling at his confusion over the dozens of cereal options. Alex noticed how Maya hummed unconsciously while cooking, something he had never been able to hear through their video calls. But there were also moments of unexpected distance. Sometimes they would sit on the couch together, both on their phones, and realize they were more comfortable communicating through screens than in person. The easy flow of their video call conversations didn't always translate to face-to-face interaction. They had to learn each other's physical presence the same way. They had learned each other's personalities, slowly and with patience. Alex's 2-week tourist visa felt both endless and impossibly short. They tried to pack in all the experiences they had talked about. During their long-distance relationship, they visited the observatory Maya had mentioned in her early forum posts, where Alex finally got to see through the telescope that had sparked her love of astronomy. They walked through Golden Gate Park, where Maya showed him the bench where she had sat during their first video call. Every mundane activity became special. They spent an entire afternoon in a bookstore, reading passages aloud to each other and discovering new things about each other's interests. They cooked Swedish pancakes for breakfast and American tacos for dinner, sharing the foods from their respective cultures. Even watching Netflix together felt different when they could share the same couch. Instead of synchronizing their viewing across time zones. As the departure date approached, both Maya and Alex struggled with the same question. Had their connection survived the transition from digital to physical? They had spent so long building a relationship through screens that being together in person felt like starting over in some ways. But slowly, they began to find their rhythm. They learned when to talk and when to enjoy comfortable silence. They discovered that their physical chemistry was just as strong as their emotional connection. The night before Alex's flight back to Sweden, they stayed up talking until sunrise. Not on video call this time, but lying in Maya's bed, whispering in the darkness about their fears and hopes for the future. They had proven to themselves that their love could survive the transition from digital to physical. But now they faced the challenge of returning to long distance while knowing exactly what they were missing. Alex's departure was harder than either of them had anticipated. They had spent 2 years missing someone they had never held. But now Maya knew exactly how it felt to wake up next to him. Alex knew the sound of Maya's breathing when she slept, and the way she looked first thing in the morning. Going back to video calls felt like a step backward, but it was also a step forward. They now knew with certainty that their future together was worth fighting for. Standing at the airport security checkpoint, Alex turned back to look at Maya one more time. She was crying, but she was also smiling. They had crossed the biggest hurdle of their relationship. The distance between them was no longer about uncertainty. It was just about time and paperwork. They had found their way to each other once, and they would find their way back again. The immigration officer at Stockholm Arlanda Airport looked at Maya's passport and residence permit with the same bored expression. She had probably worn for thousands of travelers that day. But for Maya, the simple stamp that marked her entry into Sweden felt like the end of the longest journey of her life. She had successfully defended her doctoral thesis 3 months earlier, conducting her defense via video link from California while Alex cheered silently. From his living room in Stockholm, Alex waited beyond the security barriers, holding a bouquet of flowers and a sign that read Dr. Maya Rodriguez, a title that still felt new and exciting to her when she saw him. All the stress of the past year melted away. The visa applications, the job search, the painful process of leaving her life in California behind, none of it mattered anymore. She was finally in the same country as the person she loved. Their second reunion was different from their first meeting at the San Francisco airport. This time, there was no departure date looming over them. Maya wasn't visiting Alex. She was coming home to him. The hug they shared felt different too, more relaxed, more certain. They had already proven that their love could survive the transition from digital to physical. Now they were ready to build a life together. The apartment Alex had found for them was small but perfect, located on the 4th floor of a building near the harbor. It had large windows that let in the Nordic light and enough space for both of their desks. Maya's books about distant planets shared shelf space with Alex's collection of technical manuals and Swedish poetry. Her telescope fit perfectly on the small balcony, where she could observe the same stars she had studied from California, but now from a completely different perspective. The first few weeks were an adjustment period that neither of them had fully anticipated. Maya had to learn to navigate daily life in a new country, from figuring out the grocery stores to understanding the public transportation system. Simple tasks like opening a bank account or getting a local phone number required Alex's help and translation skills. Sometimes Maya felt frustrated by her dependence on him for things she had always done independently. Alex was adjusting to, after years of living alone. He had to learn to share his space with someone else. Maya had different routines and habits than he did. She liked to stay up late reading, while he preferred to wake up early. She was more social than he was, eager to meet new people and explore their neighborhood. He was more of a homebody, content to spend evenings quietly together. But they figured it out together, the same way they had navigated their long-distance relationship. They learned to compromise and communicate about their needs. Maya found quiet coffee shops where she could work late without disturbing Alex's sleep. Alex pushed himself to be more social, taking Maya to local events and introducing her to his friends and colleagues. Maya found a position at the Swedish Institute of Space Physics, where her research on potentially habitable exoplanets was welcomed by the international team. Her first day at work was both exciting and terrifying. She had to present her research in English to colleagues who spoke multiple languages, and she worried about whether her American academic background would fit in with the European research culture, but her concerns were unfounded. Her colleagues were fascinated by her work and eager to collaborate with her. Dr. Larson, the department head, told her that her unique perspective on planetary atmospheres would complement the team's existing research perfectly. Maya realized that her journey to Sweden hadn't just been about following love. It had also opened up new professional opportunities she never would have found in California. Alex's work was going well too. His experience with satellite navigation systems had caught the attention of a European Space Agency project, and he was invited to contribute to a mission planning team. For the first time in his career, he felt like he was making a direct contribution to space exploration, rather than just maintaining existing systems. Maya's passion for astronomy had inspired him to pursue more challenging projects in his own field. They developed new routines together. Morning coffee became a sacred ritual, with Alex making Swedish-style coffee while Maya prepared American-style breakfast. They would sit at their small kitchen table, sharing news articles and discussing their plans for the day. Evenings were spent taking long walks along the harbor, where Maya marveled at how different the sunset looked from this latitude. Maya slowly began to feel at home in Stockholm. She learned basic Swedish phrases and started to recognize the regulars at their local coffee shop. She discovered that she loved the long summer days when the sun barely set, and she was surprisingly okay with the short winter days when darkness came early. The city felt manageable compared to the sprawling California suburbs where she had grown up. Their relationship deepened in ways they hadn't expected. Living together revealed new dimensions of their personalities. Maya discovered that Alex was incredibly thoughtful about small details. He would remember exactly how she liked her coffee and would leave little notes for her to find during stressful workdays. Alex learned that Maya was more adventurous than he had realized, always suggesting new places to explore and new experiences to try. They also had their first real fights as a couple living together. The stress of Maya's job search had led to some tense conversations about their future. Alex's tendency to withdraw when he was stressed sometimes left Maya feeling shut out. But they learned to work through these conflicts the same way. They had handled every other challenge in their relationship through honest communication and patience. One evening in their second month together, they were lying in bed after a particularly good day. Maya had received positive feedback on a research paper, and Alex had been selected for an important project at work. They were both reading, Maya with a novel in English, Alex with a technical journal in Swedish, when Maya looked up and realized something had changed. "I feel like I'm home," she said suddenly. Alex looked up from his reading. Surprised by the declaration, "In Stockholm?" he asked. "With you," Maya replied. "I've spent so many years thinking home was a place, but it's not. It's a person," Alex put down his journal and pulled her closer. "I've been thinking the same thing. I used to dream about traveling to space, about going to other planets. But now I realize I don't need to go anywhere. Everything I want is right here." They talked late into the night about their future together. Maya was eligible to apply for permanent residency in Sweden, and Alex was considering applying for positions at American space agencies if Maya ever wanted to move back. They discussed the possibility of children, of buying a house, of growing old together while watching the stars from their backyard. 6 months after Maya's arrival in Stockholm, they adopted a cat from a local shelter. They named him Kepler, after the space telescope that had sparked their first conversation on the astronomy forum. Kepler was an orange tabby, who seemed to understand that his job was to make their small apartment feel even more like home there. Life together wasn't dramatic or extraordinary from the outside. Alex went to work at the research center. Maya continued her studies on exoplanets, and they spent their evenings cooking dinner and watching Swedish television shows. But for two people who had spent years separated by thousands of miles, the simple routine of daily life together felt like a miracle. Sometimes, late at night, they would still talk about the vastness of space and their place within it. But now, they did so from the same bed in the same city, under the same stars they had once watched from opposite sides of the world. The distance that had once separated them had become part of their love story. Not an obstacle they had overcome, but a necessary part of the journey that had brought them together. Maya had indeed crossed light years to be with Alex, though the distance had been measured in time, determination, and faith rather than physical space. And every night, as she fell asleep next to the person she loved, she felt grateful for every mile, every visa application, and every moment of doubt that had led her to this simple, perfect conclusion to their impossible love story.